We're back for our first episode of 2026, episode 49 of the Unapologetic Podcast. My name is Brandt Merritt.
I'm Jonathon, Woodyard.
And we're doing it remote today, our split screen style. If you're watching the video, because Jonathon's on the road, where are you at today, Dr. Woodyard?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. So been here a couple of days now. Been in Kentucky for a little bit because we came down to visit family in London, Kentucky, my side of the family for Christmas, and then we saw Gina's side of the family in Lexington, Kentucky. So we just kind of went as far down almost to the southern border of Kentucky, Tennessee. We're about 45 minutes from that, where my parents live. Then we started backtracking, stopped in Lexington, and now we're stopping in Louisville for CrossCon, which is a conference that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but have some students here. So I'm meeting with them, and then Gina and the boys actually just left today to start driving back, and then I'll go home tomorrow.
Okay. So you're getting your fill of Kentucky for the last couple weeks.
My fill of Kentucky, for sure. Yeah, I'm ready to be home.
Yeah. How's the basketball team doing?
Kentucky basketball team, sore subject.
I didn't even tell you I was going to ask that question. I know.
Well, usually I'm all gung-ho to talk about Kentucky basketball, but man, they've struggled. They have been, I've watched a lot of basketball, and I've seen some really bad basketball teams at the University of Kentucky. That's usually not the case, but this one, I have to remind myself, these are 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids. I don't want to speak bad about them as persons, but as basketball players, they are struggling to come together, and it's not a fun season so far. But this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Well, we're recording this one on Tuesday. I think, is it tomorrow night that Mizzou plays Kentucky? It's this week.
Kentucky plays Missouri tomorrow night at Rep Arena. Tonight, Duke plays Louisville. I'm staying in a hotel that's connected to the Yum Center. And so the Duke basketball players may be here around somewhere. And that's the game. Somebody said, "Oh, you're going to go maybe watch that game?" I'm like, "Well, no, I don't have time to do that." Conference, but number two, that's a game I'd go to and want both teams to lose. So I don't want to go and watch either Duke or Louisville win the game. So
yeah, we got to go meet some friends in Columbia for the Mizzou Florida basketball game this last Saturday, which we barely pulled out. We all went into it with very low expectations of what Mizzou was going to be able to do, but thankfully we were able to get a good conference win. So that was a pleasant surprise. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Kentucky, Mizzou tomorrow night. We'll see.
There we go. Well, so CrossCon, it was funny. You and I were messaging a little bit yesterday and talking about some of what CrossCon is going to do in the future. And I kind of made the joke of they're trying to be the next Passion, which is my context of going to large conferences, because Passion early 2000s was, I went the 2 years it was in Nashville, and then I know they moved to Atlanta and, big in the stadium there, which CrossCon's kind of got some plans to do the stadium experience. So that idea of getting young adult, college age students, together for worship conference, theology conference, Jesus conferences, been around, but CrossCon's really kind of, made some leaps and bounds. It seems like made some leaps and bounds these last couple of years and become a pretty well-established event. So, what's it been like getting some students registered there? We got a large group of students, and what have you guys experienced the last couple of days up there?
Yeah, it's been really good. So you mentioned a few different conferences there. You mentioned Passion, CrossCon, those two, but then there are other collegiate conferences going on right now. Salt Co. has their conference, I think last weekend or so, you had that going on. And I think there are other kind of conferences going on too, but I don't know if there's something going on there. I think a lot of people have talked about, kind of given some cultural commentary on Jesus moving through this generation, and are we seeing sort of an awakening right now in this cultural moment? I don't know if we are, but it's really encouraging to see, 6,000 people. We're in the room over at the Kentucky Convention Center just down the street here. There's 6,000 people in that room that are praising Jesus, which is a lot of fun to see. And CrossCon has grown to where now they do this over 2 iterations. So the first iteration was January the 1st through the 3rd. So last week, and then they took Saturday afternoon and Sunday off, and then the conference restarted yesterday for the second iteration. The whole new group of people coming in terms of attendees, and they run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The first iteration had almost 12,000 people here, and now
Wow.
6,000 here. So you have 18,000 people or so at this conference worshiping Jesus, mostly 18 to 24-year-olds. And then you've got something similar going on in Passion. I think it's even bigger in terms of number of students that are there pursuing Jesus, pursuing their faith. So it's really cool to just kind of sit back and praise God for that, but also to praise God that our students, that we had actually, we had 35 students. We've got 36 or so people. We've got a couple of leaders, got 35 students that jumped in to say, hey, I want to go to that. And then just to see them here at the conference, we just had lunch a few minutes ago and kind of debriefing, listening to how God is stirring in their hearts and challenging them. That's been pretty cool. But you think about those conferences, CrossCon, particularly, what CrossCon's trying to do is not what Passion's trying to do. And I've never been to Passion. You get a little bit different flavor in terms of, we're all on the same team, but maybe we live maybe in different villages, in the same country, so to speak. Passion, I've never been, so I can't say much about what's going on there. I don't know much about it. I know who the people are. But CrossCon, one of the things about it, you're going to get a place that's trumpeting, taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. It's one of the things they're trying to do is mobilize this generation to live, to make their life count. That's kind of the tagline of the conference this year: make your life count. Spend it to make Jesus known, either here in your neighborhoods or among the nations of the world. And so a lot of missions emphasis just down the hall from me over here in the hotel. Well, there's a breakout session talking about the character traits of a missionary. That room's packed with hundreds of people right now, these students hearing what is it? What are the character traits? What are the marks of somebody who goes to the mission field? So CrossCon is calling you Godward, calling you to worship Jesus, calling you to pursue him with all of your being, to raise your affections for Christ, but then to let that push you into the world and to live on mission, particularly cross-cultural missions, leaving and going to the hardest places on the planet. I think that's different than what you're getting at Passion. Passion's calling you to love Jesus, love the gospel, love your neighbor, all that. But there's a very missional emphasis that's really born out of the Bible. But then John Piper, one of the main speakers here, is kind of known for that, right? Known for pushing people to the hardest places on the planet with the good news of Jesus. So that's what you're getting here at CrossCon. Be faithful to Jesus, love Jesus, treasure Christ above all things, very Christian, hedonistic. God is most glorified in you and you're most satisfied in him. And then let that push you to live faithfully and live on mission. So it's a little bit different than some of the other conferences. It's also probably a little bit more intellectually engaging. I mean, expositional preaching. One of the sessions we just had a lecture from Carl Trueman on understanding the self in this kind of moment where people don't understand who they are, and debating LGBTQ stuff and personal identity. And so it's maybe a bit more intellectually engaging than some other places. But students are eating it up. People are coming. They're just growing. And then next year they're going to do this in St. Louis. They're coming to our backyard, where they're moving into the stadium where the Rams used to play, which I've never been to, but this massive stadium. And they're going to try to get it and draw even more 18 to 25-year-olds into that setting and kind of pump the same kind of message into their veins next year. So that's what we're doing.
The 2 years that I got to go to Passion in Nashville, so that was, I don't know what their arena is, like 18,000 people, maybe. It was mostly full. But I mean, in addition to the worship and the Christ focused moments, just the encouraging thing was like, okay, there's like 18,000 other people my age. So for our students to go and be in a setting where, if you're on SBU's campus, you've got 800 students that you're striving together to pursue Christ and go through discipleship and go on mission trips, but then to kind of step out and see 18, well, in this case, 6,000, 12,000 students like you, it's a very encouraging, I think, moment. You come out of those. I came out of those just with my eyes open of, okay, like there's a lot of us who are pursuing the same thing. And it's just a pretty neat experience that you get to walk away from.
Yeah, it really is. We met. The group got in here on Sunday, and I took them over to a friend of mine's church across the river, and they let us use a space to meet and have dinner Sunday night before the conference started on Monday. And I talked to them briefly there and said, "Hey, I'm excited you're here. Love getting to spend time with you guys. But one of the reasons I'm excited is because I know how God has He's used a lot of things in my life to help me grow in my faith. The local church and Bible reading and sermons and books and people. But one of the things that God has used is Christian conferences. So I think a Together for the Gospel or Desiring God Pastors Conference or Desiring God National Conference or the Pastors Conference at the Southern Baptist Convention. God has used conferences to help me grow in my faith. And so one of the things that I am excited for our students is to be in this kind of conference setting, like you said, to see these 6,000. So take the blinders off and look horizontally and see the people around you who are worshiping Jesus that are like you. And then just know that God can work through these things to conform you into the image of Jesus. So through the experience of the conference, through the preaching and the singing of the songs and all the different things that they're experiencing, God can use this to shape them, which is, that's what we're trying to do at the university is we're trying to shape a certain type of person, right? Mature men and women who are ready to make a Christ exalting impact in the world. Well, this is one of the ways that we're doing it is just this kind of trip is another kind of tool for us to help shape our students.
Yep. Well, so that ties right into the other thing we were talking about today a little bit is we've hinted at it. We've given some teasers to the conference that we're going to host in the spring for our students. But I wanted to, in the light of you being at CrossCon, spend a little time unpacking a little more what our Ignite conference is going to be coming up in February. So what are the speakers that are coming? What's like the breakout format? What are the goals?
Yeah.
From that conference, because it's different for us. We haven't done it like this before, and I think it's going to be a pretty neat experience for our students.
Yeah, so Ignite SBU is something that we really came up with about a year ago. We were thinking, well, I take that back. It wasn't a year ago. It was back when my student life team, got off site back in April or so to start looking forward at the next year. One of the things that SBU has done over the years is something called Alteration. Alteration is a conference that it's kind of a So don't think Passion or CrossCon.
Right.
We're shifting to a different size here. Instead, if you're listening to this, think of maybe your church does a Discipleship Now weekend. It's for your church. It's smaller, but there's sessions and there's breakouts and there's discussion. So something like that scale for our students, and then other people can come there, no problem. And we're going to advertise it and put it on social media. And if people come from other places, great. But it's for our students where it's kind of a Discipleship Now, a D-Now type of weekend. So we're calling it Ignite SBU. And the goal is we're housing it under the Center for Worldview and Culture. And the goal of the center is to prepare students to practice their faith with courage and confidence in a confused world. And we're really focusing on that first part, practice your faith. We don't want you to we don't want people merely professing to be Christians, but to actually practice Christianity, to live Christianly in all of life. So we're inviting Jed and Melanie Coppinger. Melanie is an alumna of SBU, and they're going to come. And Jed's written a book recently called Fake Christianity. And really what we want to do is talk about what does genuine Christianity look like? What does fruitful faith look like? What's it look like to live out the Christian life? What are the fruits that are born of living Christianly? So Jed's going to address that at the conference. That's the main idea. So Ignite SBU will always be the conference kind of name, and then there'll be a different theme each year. And he'll do some sessions. We're going to have men and women's tracks in terms of breakouts. So you can go to one track and hear kind of biblical manhood, maybe type stuff. Another track from Melanie's going to talk about maybe biblical womanhood. what that looks like. And then we'll have a third track that's for both men and women together. So men's track, women's track, and a co-ed track. Likely led, well, I'm not going to say the name yet because we're working on some details, but a professor from Midwestern Seminary up in Kansas City, they're actually helping us sponsor. They're going to sponsor the conference for us, helping us financially, which we're really thankful for our partnership with Midwestern. So they're going to send a professor who's going to do a co-ed track. And so, again, just opportunities to go to some main sessions. There'll be a panel discussion. There'll be some breakouts, just like conference feel. You'll have a lanyard with your name and all that stuff on it. We're going to feed people lunch. And we're going to make it feel as much like a conference as we can, but really thinking more along those lines of that discipleship now weekend. And again, we're just another tool, another way that we are trying to shape men and women who love Jesus and want to make a difference for him in the world. So when we say, it's funny when we talk about education at SBU and we say, hey, we believe in formation, not merely training for vocation. We're serious about that. We really are serious about the fact that we want to take your student, keep them for 3 to 4 years and shape them. And we're not just going to do that in the classroom. The classroom, it's certainly going to happen, but it's going to be through chapel and these other a trip to CrossCon, or you and I are leading a trip to England in the summer, the same sort of thing, trying to shape these young hearts and minds.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I'm excited for that to take off because to your point, you mentioned alteration is kind of the context for anyone who's been around SBU for a little while. So to have something now that we're going to make campus wide, university wide and integrate everybody, I think is going to be a great addition.
Yeah, we're excited about it. So working on it now. Registration for that will open up Sunday night at Reunion in the Union. So looking forward to it.
I do think I got the registration form all updated to the way we need it for you. So just that's a technical update.
I didn't even know that they had asked you to do that. I'm sure somebody told me in a meeting, but there's a lot of hands moving and trying to make this thing go. So I'm glad they're on it.
Yeah, there's always behind the scenes things for any of this stuff that you don't ever think can make it more complicated, but that always does add little wrinkles to it. So, but we got it sorted out. We're good. So one other thing we are going to touch on in sort of the theme of resolutions in a new year. We have some things from Jonathan Edwards we're going to go over. But before we do that, I forgot to mention at the beginning, could have been our good icebreaker, is what are we wearing on our split screen here? Yeah. We've got branded gear. It's like a real thing now.
We do. Man, it's crazy to think about the podcast. If you're listening to this, I mean, this was an idea that we were texting, and I can't remember how I said something to you about a podcast. You said something about it. And then we're like, hey, why don't we do one? What would it be about? I'm not sure. And then it's turned into us sitting down. Well, let's just talk about SBU and what we do, what we're doing, what we're reading, what we're thinking. And then all of a sudden we're doing this thing, and I don't remember if it was, I think it was maybe a Diet Coke break or a trustee meeting. There's a slide in Dr. Nelson, our president's presentation, and he starts talking about the Unapologetic Podcast. And I'm like, oh man, I guess we have to actually keep doing this thing.
We can't stop now.
And we've got to take it seriously. So we've got to show up prepared, which I kind of do. Yeah. So anyway, that to say, so we're doing this podcast, and this Christmas we're opening gifts, and I opened a box, and there's this pullover, a black one that you're wearing, and then T-shirts. And our wives had schemed behind our backs and put together some merch. And so maybe we'll sell some. I don't know. I'm going to pay for some new microphones.
Or at least, it's a good incentive for some of our big name guests who come in from the outside. We'll give you a T-shirt.
There we go. We'll give them a T-shirt.
You come on the podcast. But yeah, it was funny. You had your gift first. And we were doing, I think we were at Christy's parents on Christmas morning, and I texted you something. I was like, oh, hey, did you get your big surprise gift yet? And I'm like, no, I didn't know I had a big surprise gift. And I asked Christy, she's like, well, Gina said Jonathan's great with secrets. He didn't say anything, did he? I was like, no, he didn't spill anything. It's just he just said there was a big gift coming. So then I got to open it later that night. That was a good surprise.
That's
So
good.
yeah,
That's good.
we're official. We're official now.
We're official now. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
that's a good
on
segue somehow
resolutions.
into Jonathon Edwards.
Yeah, I know. I don't think Jonathan Edwards had any merch that he
He
sold
didn't
when
have
he
any
was
swag. No, not at all.
no, but he did
No,
have resolutions, and
he did have
that's
some
a
resolutions.
common New Year's thing. And I discovered these. Desiring God had posted them a long time ago, and that's probably where I saw a link to it one year, a decade or so ago. And I always go back to it. I think it's a great list of things. But you had some context and just history of sort of when he wrote them in his lifetime, kind of where it fit within his story that I didn't know. So before we kind of read a few of them as encouragements for New Year's resolutions for Christians,
Yeah.
what was some of the context of how he wrote these?
Well, just I think when people read the resolutions, they think, "Oh, I'm." They these are things that Jonathan Edwards wrote. This guy, who was he? People say the greatest American theologian ever. I mean, just
Yeah.
massive volumes of stuff that he wrote. Brilliant guy, thought deeply about the Bible, thought deeply about theology and philosophy. President of Yale for a short time. Just this brilliant guy. But when he wrote these resolutions, he wasn't that. This was Jonathan Edwards, 1722, 1723, I think,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. And I think at that time in his life, he's in New York, um, and he's trying to figure out life. And these are the resolutions of, now, granted, a very different 19-year-old than maybe
Yes.
I was. Certainly than I was when I was 19. But still, you're reading these of a guy who sat down and penned these resolutions, trying to think about how to live and take the moments of life captive and wanted to be purposeful in all that he did. So when you read these resolutions of Jonathan Edwards, which he wrote over the course, I think, of a year, 70 of them, he writes them over the course of a year. You're not reading a mature Jonathan Edwards in terms of his mature thought that he
Yeah.
would work out over the years, but you're reading the resolutions of a young man who's entering into ministry. I can't remember if it was maybe his first pastorate in New York or so, that he's trying to figure out how to do things, and here's him sitting down and trying to chart out how to make the most of life, make life count, so to speak.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, in
Yeah.
his sort of his intro that he writes before he even gets into the list sets the stage for it. He says, "Being sensible that I am unable to do anything without God's help, I humbly entreat him by his grace to enable me to keep these resolutions so far as they are agreeable to his will for Christ's sake. And then remember to read over these resolutions once a week." So it's just
Which I
kind of
don't I
like,
don't know if he did or not. It'd be interesting
yeah,
to ask somebody who's written more on Edwards. I wrote my dissertation around an aspect of Edwards' thought, but there was so much about Edwards. To be an expert in Edwards, you'd have to give your whole life to it. So it'd be interesting to talk to an Edwardsian scholar to see did Edwards actually do this? Did he keep reading the
continually kind of,
resolutions
yeah.
over and over and over again? I'm not sure.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even how these came. Or I don't even know how these got published. How did he share them? Yeah, that'd be another interesting question. How did these come to light?
Well, I don't
Was
know
it
that
something?
he. I don't know that he. I don't know that he published them. You have people that are. He may have. I don't know the history of it, but it wouldn't be surprising to me that just people have his. Like, he had notebooks that he never published. So he had what's called
Probably found
his
it through that.
unpublished notes, and then people have them. His grandsons have stuff. His family has stuff, and maybe people come across them. I'm not sure how they came to light.
Yeah, but you said that, like you said, there's 70 of them, so we're not going to read all of
Yeah.
them. But I was gonna, cherry pick a few that I think are just give you a taste for the kinds of things that he would think about, and then how they're just still relevant for us today. I mean, these are timeless in a lot of ways. I love, which one is it? Number 5. resolved never to lose one moment of time, but to improve it the most profitable way that I possibly can. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a great, and in the context of someone who's pursuing Christ, not just how I can be an efficient human being, but how can I pursue those ultimate things as best as I can and use my time as best as I can.
Yeah.
Is a great one.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. And so that's number 5 where he talks about, I mean, he's getting, these are biblical, right? Redeeming the
Yeah.
time. That's Ephesians. That's, so he's resolved to make the most of his time. The Apostle Paul tells us to redeem the time. And Edwards, so maybe a decade later, he's going to preach a sermon on redeeming the time out of Ephesians 5. And he has a lot of things to say about time, why time is precious and why you should make the most of it and how you can do that. He gives you a list of reasons of why time is fleeting. So you can go and look up the preciousness of time. And the reason I know that is not because I've got every Edward sermon memorized, but a couple of years ago when I spoke at our commencement, I talked about the preciousness of time to our graduating students. I don't know if you remember that. You were there, but I don't know if you were paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about that. That came from Edwards' sermon on Ephesians 5:16 and the preciousness of time and the list he goes there. So here's a resolution. He's resolved to make the most of the time, to use it for the glory of God. And that's something that he never gets away from. 10 years later, he's preaching and unpacking just the idea of time's preciousness. And then I just feel that I feel that today, particularly after last night. So last night at the conference, John Piper preached, and then after it was over, they did him and Ben Lacey did a little interview discussion on the stage, and John's talking about he's going to be 80 years old this year, so he's closer now to what he calls the best thing in the universe than he's ever been, which is being with Jesus.
Yeah.
So he's closer now than ever, and we prayed for him and thank God at the end there, kind of thank God for his life, because we don't know if he's going to be at the conference next year. We don't know if any of us are, but right. Just statistically speaking, he's coming to the end. So I'm reminded of, man, I've listened to Piper for years. It's coming to the end. I'm getting older now. I'm sitting around, and I'm literally more than double the age of the students that are going to this conference. And time is precious, and I feel that increasingly. I don't know if it's true in your life, but increasingly, we're not old. We're not old yet. If by God's grace, we'll be old. We're graying, but we're not. But we're not 80.
No.
But we're getting older, and so I don't know as you're getting into. I would say we're past middle age. I mean, if I live double this, I'm 90. I'm feeling in my own life. And time is fleeting. It's a vapor. Make the most of it. Make your life count.
Yeah. And so the next one I was going to read and I'll kind of speak to it too. So number 9, and you think about this again from a 19-year-old writing it, resolve to think much on all occasions of my own dying and of the common circumstances which attend death. And so that just idea of, life is finite here on earth, and there is the next day is not guaranteed, let alone the next decade, next 20 years. And so we shouldn't ignore that or shy away from it or be afraid to talk about it. I think, the church, and for believers, we should be the ones who are most comfortable talking about it, most comfortable thinking about, like, there is an end to what this life is going to be. And then that helps kind of define the purpose and helps kind of set the parameters of what we should be doing. And, I should treat every day as a day that is a finite resource that's got things that need to be done. And I can't just be idle. I can't just be, I can't sit there and always say, I can put this off till tomorrow. I can put this off till next year. Like, if I always have my end of life in mind, and think of it in the context of eternity, that should bring hope and joy in the midst of things that might be bad happening in my life. Like, there is an end, there's a great eternal reward. So that can help you get through the hard times, but then it also can help focus you on the times that are here now, even when you're not in suffering, and using that time well. So it's a stark thing. We don't talk about death a lot. And I think to have that as a resolution to say, no, I'm going to think about it a lot. And then that's actually going to provide me opportunity to maximize my time here.
That's good. One of the other things that he talks about is, well, just number 28, I'll just read it. Resolved to study the scriptures so steadily, constantly, and frequently as that I may find and plainly perceive myself to grow in the knowledge of the same. So I'm going to study the Bible so much that I perceive growing in my knowledge of the Bible. And that's something that Edwards does. I mean, that bears out in his preaching and his writing. He's just Bible soaked. And I just think that in my own life, it's like, I encourage people to read the Bible a lot, but I don't think they understand what I mean by a lot. I mean, all the time, like every time you get a chance, read the Bible, listen to the Bible, memorize the Bible, be in the book all the time. I like to tell students, I'm a reader. I love to read. Being in administration like we are, I don't get to read as much as I'd like. We just have too many meetings to go to, too many things. But in God's providence, I want to read as much as I can.
Yeah.
But so read a lot of books, but live in one. Live in one book. Read a lot of books, but live in one book, namely the Bible. Be like John Bunyan, prick him, he bleeds Bible. So Edwards had resolved to read and study the scriptures diligently. And I want to do the same. So last year, I know you and I used a Bible reading program or plan, and we read through the Bible last year. This year, I'm journaling, I hadn't handwritten. I don't really handwrite journal anymore, but I bought a journaling Bible, and I'm just handwriting notes through the Bible. This year, I'm going to give that to Calvin, my oldest son. I'm going to give that to him for Christmas next year. So I've got a year to get through the notes. I'm just kind of always writing. Just want to be in that book. Not just to give Calvin a gift. I just want to do that sort of thing all the time. And so here's Edwards that's doing that. And then what happens is that's what I said earlier. These resolutions are just him leaning into the Bible, redeeming the time, right? He's resolved to make the best use of the time. Well, that's Ephesians. Or when he says things like number 33, resolved always to do what I can towards making, maintaining, and establishing and preserving peace when it can be without overbalancing detriment in other respects. So he's not talking about maintaining peace at the cost of truth, but he wants to be a peacemaker. Yeah. Well, that's the Sermon on the Mount, right? That's Jesus is called, blessed are the peacemakers. So Edwards is resolved to study the Bible. He does. And this just comes out in his life in so many different ways through sermons and writings and even his resolutions.
Yep. That's good stuff. I was thinking on the Bible reading part, it was this morning's devotion from Desiring God, or the Ask Pastor John series that he does. And so they played a clip from a sermon in Romans 10. I think it was Romans 10. But about reading the Bible and how someone had asked him, like, how do I get the most out of my time reading scripture? And, he made a point of, Paul didn't just share these words for idleness. God's word has meaning and purpose, and it should evoke a change in us. And you're not going to get a change by sitting down, checking a box on a chapter of scripture that you read and then moving on throughout your day. And that's the only time you spent in it. So he just kind of presented this contradiction. You have to read the Bible fast because you want to get through it quickly so you can capture the story, see how it all connects to Jesus in the end and how it's one cohesive narrative. So you need to read fast so you can get that, but you also got to read slow so you can actually understand, meditate, have the words evoke, God's word evoke change within you. So it's this contradiction of, you can't do that just reading through it. And you also can't do it by spending a month in one chapter of just trying to analyze every single word. Like, you got to do both parts of it for God's word to do its work, which is, it was a great encouragement this morning on that part. So
it's good.
So yeah, good stuff. His resolutions, if you just Google Jonathon Edwards resolutions, Desiring God, it'll pull up the whole list on the Desiring God website. I'm sure there's other sources out there too, but for anyone who likes to do New Year's resolutions or maybe needs help in guiding them or has just never really thought through it, I think it's a great starting point for believers to,
I would also say just in terms of Jonathan Edwards, if you're a person thinking, man, I really want to grow in my faith this year. I want to obviously live in the Bible, read the Bible a lot, but I also want to stretch myself intellectually and kind of get away from the kind of the modern superficial Christianity light books and get into something meaty. Uh, pick up a book by Edwards, and I'll mention two. Pick up a Charity and Its Fruits. So Charity and Its Fruits, Jonathan Edwards sermons in 1 Corinthians 13, and just read those. Just read those devotionally. They're going to stretch you. He's not putting things on the bottom shelf. I mean, he's a deep thinker. But read Charity and Its Fruits. And if you like, man, I like reading some of that stuff, but I've never really dove into Edwards, and I'd really like to dive in a little bit deeper, but maybe need some help. You can read. It's called The End, like in goal, the end for which God created the world. Get the edition from Desiring God that has Pastor John's introduction and kind of explanation. What's the word I'm looking for? Explanatory notes in the book. So those are two places you could dive into Edwards profitably, I think.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, enjoy the rest of CrossCon. That's
I am
is
resolved
it over
to enjoy.
You're resolved.
I'm resolved to enjoy the conference. It's over tomorrow. So right now they're doing breakout sessions. I'm just skipping out on some of the breakout sessions. There was one on a friend of mine was doing. Well, you know David Mathis. You met him when he was here. We're at SBU. We had him preach. So David's here and he's doing one on exercise. And I said, I'm not going to that one. Not doing that.
That's not one of your. You haven't resolved for that one, I guess.
I've not resolved for that one yet. Yeah. No, but yeah. So it'll be a good rest of the conference. The evening should be good, and looking forward to debriefing with everybody to see how God is stirring their hearts. So I asked them, just think through 4 questions. What did you hear that was particularly encouraging? Hear or see? What was particularly encouraging? How is God stirring your affections? How are you challenged to grow in your faith? And then do you have any nagging questions? Did somebody say something? It's like, man, I don't know what to think about that or what to think about this. Or those are 4 things. So interested to hear how they're processing.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. Well, you guys will get back, and we got classes starting on Monday. So the spring semester is off to the races this month. It's great.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, next episode will be number 50. So we'll come up with something good for everybody to celebrate 50 episodes and keep going throughout the spring. So thanks as always for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.